Hello and welcome to the live stream. It's been a couple of weeks. Sorry about the delay. Of course, when you try to get 3 or 4 people together on a stream, there's going to be some technical difficulties. We are short one person, but I think this is going to be fun anyway. I think what's really exciting about this time is we have enough amazing EVs to actually. Sorry. Sorry about the delay. Of course, we try to. We have enough cool EVs. Sorry about that. To have a debate. It was not just one or two, but we have a bunch. So I thought Alex from E for Electric, Nikki from Transport Evolved, Ryan and I, and a couple of others are on a chat. We talk, and there was this nice, healthy debate happening. So I thought, all right, save it, everybody. Let's go live and share it with some people and have some fun. So, you guys want to introduce yourselves? Nikki, you want to get started?
Hey everyone, I'm Nikki from Transport Evolved. I am the founder of Transport Evolved. I guess I'm the lead presenter, but there's a great team of people that I work with, and we all make content every day about cleaner, greener, safer, and smarter transport and what that means for the future. And sometimes it's, motorbikes, sometimes it's bicycles, sometimes it's $150,000 sports cars, and sometimes it's secondhand EVs. And everyone on our team pretty much drives an EV. I think we've got 2 people who don't, but everybody else drives a plug-in car.
Very cool. And Alex from E for Electric.
Hey guys, Alex, E for Electric, electric car news on a weekly basis. Thank you, first of all, Ricky, for organizing this. This is going to be fun. I know all 3 of us have been going back and forth in our private chats. So it's really cool to do it with the audience, and we're going to see what they have to say. So I'm really excited about it, and thanks for organizing it.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, what's really interesting is we have enough good options if you want to go electric that we can actually have fun debates. And I think Nikki and Alex have some very differing views on some things, starting with probably what spurred this idea to have a debate, talking about crossover electric cars. Is that a good place to start, you guys think?
Let's do it. I just got my ID4 that I started driving a couple of days ago, so I am excited. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see crossover cars finally come into the market, because crossover is the biggest automotive market segment. And I think we forget that, right? We are in this little insular bubble. I would hazard a guess that the majority of people watching this channel right now are EV nerds like us, right? They got into EVs for whatever reason, whether it was the gadgets, whether it was the driving experience. And we forget that the rest of the world prefers pickup trucks and SUVs and crossovers. And so we're finally starting to see those segments getting represented, and it's truly exciting. Alex has just bought a crossover. I guess that's what it's marketed as, right, Alex?
I think so. Honestly, I've never driven ever owned an SUV before. I've always been a 4-door sedan. I guess this is an SUV, but I've been enjoying it. Just like I said, I just started driving it a couple of days ago, but crossover or not, so far I like it.
Yeah, I think it's the crossover SUV was popularized when we started building more SUV-sized cars on car platforms as opposed to truck platforms. You get that nice driving feel. It feels more like a car. It's easier to park, right? Things like the Toyota RAV4, the Honda CR-V, that kind of class. So yeah, I'd categorize it that way for sure. And it's wildly popular in the US. It's almost impossible to sell sedans anymore. Everybody wants a crossover. So
right. And it's really weird to think that the crossover is approaching 30 years old. Just think about that for a second. The crossover is closer to 30 than it is, yeah.
Was the first one the Honda CR-V?
1996. No, the first one, 1990, I think it was 95 or 96. It was the Toyota RAV4. Closely followed by the CR-V. And I think this is a great history teaching moment as well, because you think back then, it was the Japanese automakers, it was Honda and Toyota that were leading the world in the crossover segment. And the rest of the world just went, oh my God, that's brilliant. And then suddenly everybody, 5-10 years later, when these cars are really starting to sell in huge volumes, everyone starts copying. And of course, the world's first crossover got an electric variant less than a year after it launched. It was debuted as a prototype vehicle in the form of the RAV4 EV, that first generation car, which then eventually obviously became limited production. And we know what happens with Revenge of the Electric Car. I was lucky enough to own one. My buddy, who also hosts Transport Evolve, Kate Walton Elliott, she also had one. But it's taken us basically 25 plus years to get to a point where mainstream automakers are going, yeah, let's make these crossover SUVs. And it's really sad that Toyota and Honda are not at the front of that, because they were at the front of crossovers, and then they were at the forefront of hybrids. It was Toyota and Honda who really kick-started hybrids. I know that, the Americans came up with concept hybrid cars long before that, and the Brits had hybrid cars in the 70s and the 80s. And, if you go back 100 years, there were even hybrid cars at the dawn of the automobile. But they were leading it then, and now they're doing... Sorry, I'm getting on a rant about Japanese automakers not being in the EV space.
I think it's understandable. I have a lot of people who tell me that they'd buy an EV as soon as Honda or Toyota built one. I get that all the time from like family and friends and stuff. So I think it's a fair point. That RAV4 EV was
they love
awesome
Toyota.
too.
They wouldn't buy anything else, and it would have to take Toyota to actually make one. I agree with Nick. It's a shame that Toyota and Honda are essentially on the in the back now, trailing everybody else. Though who knows? Maybe they have some surprise for us in the next year or two. Doesn't seem that way though.
All right, so without them, we do have some choices. We've got the ID.4 from Volkswagen. We mentioned that. We have the Mach-E from Ford, the Mustang Mach-E. There's the Tesla Model Y. What else? Are there any others? Is the Niro or the Kona, are those are kind of more
I would.
maybe?
So I would. No, I see. It's funny, right? So I always think of the Niro EV as quasi crossover, and you're gonna laugh at me. I sometimes think of the Bolt as heading that way as well because of its seating position. You sit up high in the Bolt. It's one of the reasons why I like it. You sit up higher than you would in most hatchbacks. So it's kind of that hatchback crossover thing. And the term crossover has become really bastardized over the years and really pulled out to the point that we're not really sure where they start and where they finish. Obviously, the Bolt EUV is a laughable crossover. As far as I'm concerned, it's about as much a crossover as the Bolt is. It's kind of...
It's closer. Yeah, I mean, I think it's, I had a chance to drive the EUV. It's pretty vastly improved, a little bit bigger. Yeah, it's definitely heading that direction. All right, so
somebody in the chat says, sorry, are we allowed to take questions from the chat?
Of course,
somebody says,
absolutely.
Said, what about the Honda E? I actually don't even consider it as a car. I think it's a bit of an embarrassment to electric cars, and I don't even know if they would consider it as a crossover or I
think it's a sports hatchback, kind of a hot hatch.
Hold up there, Alex. Yeah. Hold up there. The Honda E is one of the best traditions in Honda's small segment. Honda is one of the kings of small compact cars. I've not driven the Honda E, but everybody I know, hey Ryan, everyone I know has driven a Honda E has only good things to say about it. Sure, it's got a limited range. Sure, it's not, got a huge amount of cargo space, but you have to think contextually, right? Here in America, the Honda E would be a flop. In Europe, it offers everything that a lot of city dwellers look for in an EV. And it's very important to understand market contextualities here, because in Europe, it's small, it's fast, it's got vehicle to infrastructure capabilities because it's got that onboard power inverter. It's full of gadgets, Alex. You should be like, it's like...
Listen, I am sure it's a wonderful car while it's not moving, but once it's moving, it doesn't seem to get away that far. My point is this. If Honda E was one of many Honda's electric vehicles and just happened to have a short range, I would be like, great, you're right. There's a market for everybody, right? But, after all these years, they finally come up with one, and this is the only choice they have right now. And I think me and you can put a better range in our garages if we tried. And it's what 100 something miles. And I get it. It could be enough for a lot of people in Europe, but it's barely an EV.
It's also expensive, but it
Okay.
is cool and good looking.
It is cool. It is cool and good looking. But
I hate to say it,
remember,
but there's some of these
Wow,
models
that's
not
that
about
cool and
range.
good looking. That's how I used to look for a girlfriend in high school. But come on, guys, range is
well,
is
so here's the
Okay,
thing though.
okay.
If people don't buy the Honda E, they're not going to build anymore. So this is the weird crux of it. Some of these companies are putting together kind of questionable choices for EVs, but if no one's buying them, then they're really not going to make any EVs, and that's kind of the situation that we find ourselves
As
in.
the only European on this chat, I'm
Wait,
gonna
wait,
pull
wait.
rank
What
a little
about
bit
me?
here.
I'm a European.
I thought you. Well, I guess you are. Yes.
I know in Europe they take
Depends.
geography. They take geography, and Moscow is definitely still in Europe.
Well,
Maybe not
you
in the
see,
good part.
I've
Maybe not in the
spoken to
good part.
Russians before. I've spoken to Russians before who object to being called Europeans because Russia is so big.
Yeah, but well, I mean, the part that I'm from is in Europe, but I don't know anybody who would object to being European. But okay, sure, but
The markets
Go
are
ahead.
completely different, though, for sure. You know,
But,
I
but
had
my point is that the market is very different, and I think it's easy for us to sit here in our part of the world and go and expect that we know what other people in other parts of the world want. To flip things on its head, you wouldn't believe the number of Europeans that I've had commenting on videos about the F-150 Lightning going, this is just American excess and it's too big and it's ridiculous. What I really want is a 2-seat small practical work truck, and that's not it, right? Whereas a lot of American people who use trucks for work are going, they love it. It's huge. It's got everything they need. So context is king. And I hear what you're saying, Alex, but let me ask you this, and then I'll shut up. Would you choose a Miata and cross-shop it against
no,
a CRV?
that's the answer already. No, I would not choose a Miata.
But for some people, the Miata is one of Mazda's most popular cars. It's why they've made it for more than 30 years. So that context is king. I'll shut up now.
Well, listen, I can only tell you this. I'm sure there's a market for every car, but when a huge company like Honda takes 10 years to come up with an electric car, and this is all they give us, a little embarrassing. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I would kind of liken it to the ID3, which is smaller, and that was for Europe, and the ID4, I think, is just smarter for America, and that's kind of probably the right approach to take there. Before we move on, I want to get into some of the details of these crossover EVs. Let's give a little shout out and talk to Ryan. Ryan, how's it going? I'm glad you made us. Glad you could make it. I heard you had some Starlink trouble. Is that what happened?
Well, I wanted to believe that it would work. I wanted to believe that Starlink would be good out in Yosemite Valley, and it's not yet there in Yosemite Valley. And so I had the backup of Wi-Fi here at the lodge. For whatever reason, my phone just wouldn't connect. The camera never went through. So apologies for my late attendance.
No worries. And so Ryan runs a channel called The Kilowatts. Check him out. We can probably try to put links in the description at the end of this video. But all of us have YouTube channels. Definitely go check out all of them. And yeah, let's talk about the cars we own. How about that? Is that a good starting point? Ryan, I think
It is.
you're probably the king of EV ownership. So why don't you get started?
Yeah. So I've got several Model 3s, a couple Model Ys, and a Mustang Mach-E. I've driven several of the others, but that's what I own at this point in time, and hopefully I'll be getting a few more soon. As some of your followers may know already, the way that I own that many cars is they're not all meant for just me. I do car sharing with Turo, and that's how I basically pay for every car that I want to have that I can use for the majority of the month. But it's also out there available for sharing, and that's been how I do that.
Very cool. And then Alex, you have the ID4.
I just bought an ID4, and I have a Chevy Volt, which is a plug-in hybrid, which I originally bought when I still have my Tesla as a commuter car because I didn't want to sit at the superchargers for 45 plus minutes. So
That was an underrated car, the Volt.
Oh, I love it. And I rent none of them on Turo.
Got it. Nikki, what do you drive?
Currently, these days, we've got 2 Chevy Bolt EVs, and we've got a Honda project car. It's an Insight with an EV1 motor in it. But previously to that, my first electric car was a City L or a Mini L. Those of you who watch Rich Rebuilds will know what one of those is because he rolled one recently. I had one of those as my first EV. Had a plug-in Prius that I converted myself. I had a 1985 Volkswagen Golf City Stromer EV that was made in really limited numbers back in the 80s. Was actually made by Volkswagen as an EV. Had a G-Wiz for a while, a couple of Renault Twizzys. I've owned 2 Nissan Leafs, a Chevrolet Volt in the UK, a right-hand drive Chevrolet Volt. I'm missing a car somewhere along the line. RAV4 EV, a first generation RAV4 EV. And
That's
the
a
reason,
cool one.
by the way, Ryan, I just want to apologize for laughing when you're talking about Starlink. In the pre-show, we were all chatting and I disappeared out of the room, and that's where I went. We have a switch in our server room in the other room in the house. And I pulled out our Starlink connection because Starlink and video conferencing never works.
It's new technology.
Yeah,
you gotta be patient.
I had the opportunity to try it, and I had already tried the Wi-Fi, so I knew I had it reliably. But it was just the combination of things that didn't allow me to get on even until just now. But thank you.
So I had a
Never use
Honda,
it on Zoom.
I had a Honda Insight, which was a hybrid. Didn't love that car. I now have a Tesla Model 3 Performance, which I absolutely love. Best
I
car
saw
I've ever.
it in person. It's beautiful.
You did? Yes. We I love
That's
that
how
car.
we met.
I did drive that to the event. Yeah, I actually met Alex at a General Motors event, right? It was the Bolt EUV event.
Yep.
So that's kind of where we're at in terms of those cars. My wife really wants the Model Y. That was the one she's interested in. I had a chance to drive the Volkswagen ID4 for about a week, and we drove it on a 1,000-mile road trip. I have some very interesting feedback and takeaways from that trip. But my wife loved that as well. By the end of the trip, she was really sad to see it go. So she would like the ID4. And that's kind of what I mean. You really could sit there and like think about this and draw lines and pros and cons and stuff. And I think that's what we should do next. Why don't we pick one of them and start? I actually think we should start with the Mustang Mach-E, which is a car everybody here has driven, I think. Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how awesome is this that we get to have this conversation, right? I mean, these cars are, no matter which one you prefer, right? These are essentially the ICE car killers, right? These are the cars, Model Y, Mustang Mach-E, ID4, and so forth. These are the cars that are going to be taken over. And I waited for this for a long time, and I'm sure a lot of you guys as well, especially Nikki. She's been around for a long time in this industry, and I just think it's exciting. But Mustang Mach-E, I loved it. I don't remember the last and only time I've gotten so much attention on the road and parking lots everywhere was when I got my 2012 Model S in 2012 when they weren't around. And one of the times when I did drive the Mustang Mach-E, it was in Malibu, and it was I have the Rolls Royces and Bentleys around me, and yet it was getting all of the attention. I think they have a huge winner on their hands. I guess my only pet peeves with them is the steering wheel that does to me look like it came from 1982 a Ford, but everything else is I think quite on point.
I think the handling of the Mach-E is just very dialed in. I am more of a car fan than a tech fan, although I am both. Driving the Mach-E, especially the all-wheel drive premium version, is just a beautiful experience. It's very well dialed in, and it feels every bit like a Mustang in terms of how the handling is. It's not, the suspension's hard, especially in the high end version. What do they call it? Brain has slipped.
Unbridled mode, I think, is the
unbridled. Yeah, unbridled. In unbridled mode, the steering is really firm. The suspension firms up. That car tells you every second where you are on the road. It is exactly what you want from a driver's car. And boy, is it quick. Those are my two takeaways. I don't like the massive sill as you get in, but that's a sports car setup that's kind of alluded to from the original Mustang. You have to get into the car, not sit in a car. The design language of the car, the exterior is beautiful. When you are driving and you look in the rearview mirror and you just see that beautiful waistline, it touches you in all the right places. But the in-cabin noise is the worst I've ever experienced in any EV. Give me the Porsche Taycan's engine noise any day. That Ford's
Mach-E?
thing is just...
Is it?
The
You mean the
Mach-E
fake?
just
You mean the
sounds-
fake sound they pump
Yeah.
in, or you can turn
the
it
fake
off?
sound
Did
is...
you
I
turn
know.
it off?
Yeah, no, I did. No, when
I
you've got
actually
the
kind of
motor
liked it.
whine, it's
I didn't
great.
have it for very long, but
I did like it as well. I hate
thought
to
it was kinda
admit this,
cool.
though.
When I drove the only car I've driven with fake engine sound that I really kind of got excited about was the Taycan. Porsche really nailed that. The sound
they
of the
nailed a lot of
Taycan
things on that
turbo.
one.
Yeah. The Taycan is the car to beat, by the way, as far as I'm concerned. If we're talking performance cars, nothing has come close to the Taycan yet. I haven't driven the Audi GT, but I suspect the Audi e-tron GT will do it.
So on the Mustang Mach-E, it's pretty interesting because I agree with you in a number of ways, but I also disagree with you, Nikki, on a few. The noise, yeah, I agree with you there. They absolutely nailed it in terms of how it feels for, I guess, almost like canyon driving for like daily commuting. It feels like a Mustang, but at least I've been one of the few people to take one to a track, and I've never taken a true Mustang. But I would have to say that it's not nearly as sporty as it could be, and I'll caveat that with yet. I think that they've done an interesting suspension where the suspension's quick, but the dampening is kind of weird. So certain bumps feel, I don't know, like there's too much going on. But I would have to say that the tires are not wide enough to be a performance car. It's just not a performance car yet. And I guess. Like sports car versus performance car, and now it's an SUV. I think this is cleanly a sports car, but not yet a performance car. And I'm used to, I've tracked my Model Ys, both the performance and non-performance, same with Model 3s. And I have more fun on the track in a non-performance dual motor Model 3 on snow tires than I do in a Mustang Mach-E on its stock tires.
So the comparison. So you're comparing a sports sedan to a crossover, so that little extra like ride height and stuff. I mean, I prefer the Model 3. What's that?
But also the Model Y performance and non-performance.
Like I prefer the Model 3 performance over the Model Y by a million times. Like I don't like the way the Y drives at all compared to what I drive every day. So I mean, the point is like if you compare it to the higher slung crossover segment, it's probably not a fair comparison apples to apples. And Mustang doesn't have the Model 3 performance equivalent yet, right? Which maybe they should.
I'm talking about the Model Y performance though.
Compared to the
Model
Mustang?
Y performance, yeah. And
Okay.
it is a more aggressive, more capable, track bullet. And then you talked about the noise. Like yes, the noise that it makes is one thing, and then as far as the road noise, it is significantly quieter. So it to me is like it's a very luxury, sporty SUV. It's not a performance car yet. And so, Nikki, it's surprising to me to hear that you were thinking like, oh, you really like the way that it drives. Well, there's a lot for me on the aggressive side that it leaves lacking.
Part of that is the context, right? Because we're going to get into that next, which is if we lined them up on a spectrum, I'm thinking Model Y, Mustang, and then it comes down to like maybe the ID4, the Bolt. Like there's a spectrum. So you're comparing the high end, and I think Nikki's comparing the Mustang versus maybe the lower end ones, and like the Mustang stands out. Is that fair?
I think what struck me about the Mustang, and it's been a criticism that I've had of a lot of EVs that I haven't been able to level at the Mustang. And I'm curious, Ryan, what version of the Mustang do you have?
I've got the all-wheel drive. I've not had a chance to drive the GT yet, so I've got the highest end that's available.
But you're gonna buy 5 of them, right?
So
not
for
planning
me,
to buy 5 of them yet, but I do have a GT on order. We'll see if I go forward with it.
So for me, I think what impressed me about the Mustang was how chuckable it was as a big car. It's a big car. There's a couple of things that I really hated about it. It had an abysmal turning circle. And that's, by the way, one of the ID4's perfect, really
Good
awesome
point.
things. The ID4 has an incredible turning circle. The Mustang Mach-E felt rooted and solid, and those are two things that, as a driver, when I'm looking on roads, I'm really looking forwards to. And when it comes to driving, I've been on tracks, I've done track days, I've driven fast, I've also driven 150,000 pound prototypes off a corner before in the UK on a racetrack, because I was doing a piece to camera and thought it was a chicane, and it wasn't, and I lined it up for a chicane, and then the corner wasn't where I thought it was, and I went straight across a track. But we're not talking about that. When I like driving on the road. I like carving on, canyons, like you said, canyon roads and mountain roads, and I love the feeling and the exhilaration that the Mustang gives me. And I also like the power delivery, which is where I was going. A lot of electric cars on the market nanny you. I hate Nissan for it. Nissan's got terrible at it. Nissan goes, now you've got a lot of torque under that right foot. We're gonna give it to you gently. Tesla doesn't. Tesla gives you much more direct control, right? Tesla goes, you want power? Have power. There you go. And the Model 3 and the Model Y give you that in great abundance. But I always feel that I am sitting in Teslas. Like, I'm driving them, I'm behind the wheel. When I was in the Mustang, I felt almost like I was part of the car. The seat held me well. The experience, like the car gave me feedback in a way that I've never felt Tesla. And I don't know why. It may be the mechanical linkages. It may be just the way that the suspension was set up. Maybe it was the way the seat was set up. It felt connected in a way that enabled me to preemptively brake. I've never made a Tesla brake traction, I don't think, apart from wheel spinning, but that's different. The Mustang got close to braking traction when I was reviewing it on one corner. It kind of, the wheels started to squeal as I went round a corner at about 50. And it was like, and then it let me know. And it let me know in a very civilized way. And that gave me a lot of good feels.
I agree with a lot of what you said there. And it's exactly that. And I have been able to get the traction loose on a Mustang. It's really, really fun. And it is a fun car. But I guess what I'm referring to, which actually is the opposite of what you just said there, is where you felt more connected to the Mustang. The reason why I feel disconnected with the Mustang is that low speed braking and low speed acceleration, that it just kind of jumps. And I'm often moving my cars within my parking garage at very low speeds. And that's where I feel disconnected. At speed, I agree with you. I feel connected. It's really fun, really playful. But it's almost like they programmed in like a quicker first 10% and a quicker last 10% as you're braking. And that, to me, makes me feel disconnected in a way that maybe it makes you feel connected.
So one of the big challenges if you're a car maker and you're switching to EVs is that pedal mapping, right? So first of all, the accelerated pedal is already fly-by-wire, meaning it's just a input signal. It's like a joystick in a video game, which talks to a computer, and the computer figures out how much voltage and current to send to the electric motors and to send you on your way. But the thing is, so Tesla, I think, does its best, and I don't think it's even close. I'd love to debate that, but like on when you touch 1% on the accelerator pedal, the car gives you 1%, and it's just every part of it all the way through is perfection. They have nailed this. The Mach-E was driving me crazy because, first of all, they've got hold, which I love, right? So you're on a hill, up or down, it'll hold you there. The release of that hold, which I believe is brake application or e-brake, I'm not sure what it is, but it's a brake application. When that releases and then the electric motor is engaged, it felt like a automatic transmission in first gear, like finding like a gear shift. Completely unrefined compared to the Tesla offerings and even the ID4 as well, which was smoother. So that was my one gripe, is like the 5 to 8, 10%, like that 10% pedal feel, both brake and accelerator, they need to just work on the programming of it. It's not impossible. If they've done an over-the-air update kind of a system where they can actually address this over the air, they could fix this very easily. Hopefully they do, because it was noticeably just more kind of, but like you guys said, after about 30 miles an hour, you're taking on-ramps and stuff. It was a pleasant car to drive, and it gets a lot of attention too. I have a white Tesla Model 3 Performance. I'm invisible. No one even knows I exist. I could pull up next to a Prius and either of us, no one would notice us. There's so many Teslas around here. I had that Mach-E, and in one day, we went to a Starbucks or In-N-Out. Everywhere we went, people were like rolling down their windows and like honking their horns and like giving us thumbs up. That car just speaks to people. For whatever reason, it does. And people are excited about it. And I think Ford did a really good job. I think it's a good-looking car.
Yeah, I had the same
I would
experience.
agree
But
with you.
one more thing, if I can add also, it actually has a very good user interface. I have to say that's one of the things. You know, and you guys know I'm not a power guy, so I couldn't really participate in that conversation. But I love gadgets, and I think they've done an amazing job with their user interface. There are a couple of stupid things there still, but I'm sure they'll correct them with time. I love the fact that it is a vertical screen that I think a lot of people will miss in the Model S, but the interfaces, you know, this is I love the ID4's interface, but I think I would have taken the Mach-E's interface over this one. Just excellent job.
So that might be a good place to kind of switch gears a little bit. If you had to weigh the general interior user interface of the media controls, how would you rank the ID4, the Mach-E, and the Model Y?
Me?
Sure, you can start.
Okay. Well, I mean, Model Y to me is a non. I need my instrumental panel. If you don't give me an instrumental panel, you're out of the running for me. So, like, again, just speaking personally. Overall, I think Tesla's interface has been excellent, though as they've added more features, it got a little kind of clunky, and some of it is much harder to use nowadays, and the access to some of the important features are kind of gone away. And of course, the fact that you can't really, as you're driving, can really point your air conditioning in your face or away from your face. You have to go and mess around with the user interface. So I'm just not a big fan anymore, and especially because there's no head-up display or the instrumental panel. For the ID4, I like it. I like it a lot, and I think a lot of people who are not necessarily tech savvy, even like my mom would actually, I think, love it a lot. It's a little laggy right now. I expect the over-the-air updates to fix that. It's a little laggy, but you know, the Mustang Mach-E, I got to tell you, except for that one thing where you, when you're driving using the navigation system and your current time is in one corner and your arrival time literally like across the entire monitor, and then you have to look for them and do the math, and even being Russian, that bothered me. You know, I'm good at math, but I don't want to do it every 3 seconds trying to figure out how soon I'm going to get to my destination. But everything else, like with tiles, with the last used application, really good job. I'd say they're the winners for me for the UI.
All right. Well, I'll jump
You
in
just
next.
got a super chat, by the way.
Yeah, really quickly. Thank you, Telesto, for the super chat. He asked, "What's the difference between the Mach-E and the GT version?"
Ooh, I can.
Yeah, I think Ryan should.
I can get into that. Yeah. So as far as what's different between the two, sorry, I've got some background noise behind me. But what's the difference between the GT and the just what's available now, the all-wheel drive? Well, they're both available in all-wheel drive. The GT only in all-wheel drive. And then you're going to get a lot of little things. You're going to get much improved seats. There's better bolstering, which is something I desperately wanted. At least again, when I tracked the all-wheel drive version, it was not really capable. Well, it's capable, but it wasn't comfortable. It didn't feel like a track-oriented car, and so you're going to get that. You're going to get improved suspension, and you are going to get more power. I think that's obviously what everyone's looking for. My concern, and like the only area that it also has a different fascia. It looks a little bit better, almost like the old Model S kind of black plastic nose, but I think it looks really good on the version that they're coming out with. So yeah, it's going to be a better, more track capable car, new wheels as well. Yeah, everything else, the user interface will feel the same. You're getting Unbridled Extend, which is a track only, driving mode. So it's going to be a much more capable car. I think the one area where I'm concerned, again, if I'm pushing the cars really to their limits, talking about the use on track, which you could say that this is still not necessarily intended for, but if it is intended for track use, like some of the Teslas might be, which I think EVs very much should be capable of it. If not already, they should be soon. So if you're going to take a Mustang to the track, my concern is that 80% DC fast charging limit, and that I believe will still be in place. I don't know if that will be in place with the F-150 electric, and that is something that wasn't necessarily said. They did highlight, 15% to 80% DC fast charge. So my assumption is that it's there as well. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on the GT performance. And yeah, actually, I guess the last part is there are two versions. There's the GT and the GT performance. And I think one of the small differences between the two is actually the suspension. I think the GT is just getting the softer suspension that's available now, whereas the GT performance, should be the one that really is more capable on track. But again, I'm curious to see if you can get some good hot laps in, if you can recharge it middle of the way through the day, if they can clear up some of that 80% fast charge limit.
And I think, Ryan, you're missing a really, really big difference, because it also comes in a very, very pretty color, which I think they stole from me right here.
Challenge. That's called challenge.
It's called E for electric orange. Okay.
E for electric orange.
Whoa.
I hate to tell you, Alex, back in the UK, we call that challenge.
Challenge. I've learned a new word today. I will use it in a sentence later, okay, I promise.
Do you know what a chav is? It's a British derogatory slang.
No. Tell us.
It refers to normally young men who are very into bling, and they have their baseball caps on back to front, and they're into showing their bling, and they'll be in parking lots late at night, with them. They've got their woofer in the back of the car, and they're pumping sound, and they like their street racing. And there was a Focus ST that was sold in that color, and it became known as Challenge. But I think E for electric orange is probably a better color.
E for electric orange.
Going.
I think we'll run it.
Yeah.
Sold.
So I will say this: you mentioned something, Ryan, which I think should probably be the point we should pivot to. My vote, by the way, for the interior UX and stuff, I think for me it's Tesla. The Mustang was pretty good. It took me a while to figure out, but there were some little shortcut keys. Like, for example, you could put your finger over the seated heat or the fan speeds, and a little pop-up comes up, and you could move it around. It felt... It's like if you ever used a Windows tablet and then you use an iPad, right? That difference. For me, that's like the Tesla. Using the Tesla's interface, I think, is pretty far ahead of the others. The others are kind of clumped together, but I think Tesla is probably the most enjoyable.
Ricky, wait a second. I don't get that analogy. I would prefer the Windows tablet. So was the Apple?
No, the Windows tablets are terrible. The ID4.
Sure. Okay.
So the ID4, for example, like you mentioned, it was very stuttery. And let's say I have the map up and I'm navigating, and I want to change the fan speed. I have to leave the entire navigation menu to a full screen for the fan speeds and controls to change, turn the AC on or off or blower, and then go. That's like old school stuff. Like, we should have overlays and cards. Like, that's the more modern approach to UI. So there's probably going to be some upgrades that happen. Ford is maybe closer, but I thought we were near the end of the UI thing, but I think maybe I just stirred a hornet's nest.
I briefly want to stack rank them. I agree with you that Tesla is most like Apple, and a lot of people will prefer that. However, Ford is very good and kind of in between, and then the Volkswagen is very customizable. And so some people may prefer that. And my only concern is that, if it's more for the mass market, do people really want to customize it? Probably. I guess I'm thinking again from that rental car perspective, where I want people to just get in and everything be familiar. Yes. And I think if you've got different colors everywhere, you've got too many things customized, you've got your menus in different places. I really align with you on that one.
I'm totally with Ryan. Okay, if I may, when it comes to UI. We're all covering electric cars, right? We're all in this market. And we're in an insular, tiny little world where electric vehicles only make up a tiny proportion of the total number of cars sold every single freaking year. And if you go and look at most modern cars, you get behind the wheel of most modern cars, they do not have a computer in the center that is used to control everything. When it comes to driving, Tesla's experience is... I'm going to liken driving a Tesla to a Yamaha piano. And I will explain why. I trained as a classical musician. I trained as I was a professional oboist for 10 years before I became a car journalist. And when I was both a student and then a teacher later on, Yamahas were the pianos that I recommended people go buy because they were predictable and they were very good, technically proficient in every single step of the way. You did something on one Yamaha piano and it would be identical on another Yamaha piano. My experience of Tesla is that it has that homogeneity across all of its models. Everything makes sense if you know how a Tesla works. And that's the big caveat, right? If you are familiar with the whole idea of a tablet PC and you're familiar with smartphone apps and you're familiar with that world, Tesla just works. From the charging experience to the route planning to the driving, it just works. As long as you understand that paradigm, it works. Now, the problem is, I know at least a dozen people who won't use cruise control on their cars because they don't feel comfortable using cruise control. Just think about that for a second. Someone who owns a regular internal combustion engine car and won't use cruise control because either they're not willing to give control of the speed to the car, or they don't feel comfortable with, well, how do I jump in and brake? Whether that's because someone's never actually shown them how to use it, or whether it's because the technology scares them, they're not willing to make that jump. And Tesla's biggest challenge, and I would say the Volkswagen ID.4's biggest challenge, is that both automakers are going towards such a heavy focus on the technology that your 80-year-old grandfather who's come to stay, who wants to borrow the car to go down and pick up a coffee, can't easily get behind the wheel and instantly know how to do it unless they have a background in the technology. And I think one of the things that Ford has in its advantage is that there's a nice big button that says stop start. It's got a traditional gear lever. It's got, well, sort of. It feels like a very conventional driving experience. You've got conventional controls on the steering wheel for the speed of the wipers and everything else. You don't have to touch that center screen at all. And I think that is the bonus. You've got the temperature controls. You can do it with the up and down. I mean, Ryan, how many times have people called you when renting a car through Turo? I'd be interested. To go, hey, how do you do X, Y, and Z? Or do you have to run it through with them? Or
it's funny because I want to agree with you, but at least with my Teslas, and this is a bit biased because a large number of my renters might already have Teslas, but we also made a video teaching just the very simple things, and that video is available. A lot of our renters see that in the listing and may already watch it, but I wouldn't know if they do. So at this point, I've got more people asking questions about the Mach-E, but it's also only been on the market for a few months, and it's mostly just related to charging. So it's tough because I do want to agree with you, and they did a phenomenal job at designing that car for the traditional car buyer that just happens to want an electric car. And that's where I think, if we jump back quickly to the Lightning, I think that they're going to nail it and sell well for exactly the reasons that you just described.
We'll definitely have time. We'll talk about the truck.
One thing I would also, I have to say it, I'm not really sure about this whole how things just work with Tesla. Somebody who's owned one for many years and moderates a couple of pretty large Tesla groups and approves all the posts. Not really sure if everything works there all the time, but we can leave this discussion for another day.
Yeah, I've had little issues, but I mean, for the most part, they work pretty well. I wanted to bring up a couple of little things. Like, so we get focused on the touch interface of it all, but to me, there's far more to it than that. I want to switch gears and talk about the ID.4 really quick. When I did my 1,000-mile road trip, so you pull into a supercharger, a charging network, Electrify America station, and you pull up the car and you start charging it. Right now, in my Tesla, the system's alive, meaning I can open the door, my wife gets out and goes to get a sandwich, my son's running around, I go to the trunk and grab something, I come back, I can open and close the windows and everything else. First of all, the ID4 made this bizarre choice. There's only 2 window controls. You don't have window controls for the rear. You have to push this rear button and then wait, the light turn. Okay, now I'm controlling the rear and I forgot, and at times it's a weird choice to save like $3 or something. It's a bizarre choice. I don't care for it. But the other thing with the ID4 is the car is like electric cars. I'm with you guys about like, oh, let's appeal to the older generation. But at the same time, we need to like tout the benefits of electric. Your car is always on. My car is always on. Get in, do whatever you want. You want to drive? You want to play TV? You want to put the windows down? Do whatever you want whenever you want. There's no start button in a Tesla. There should never be a start button. I always say this as an engineer, software engineer, now in media. If you have a start button in your EV, you're still thinking the wrong way. You have to like reboot. You need fresh ideas and stuff.
Ricky.
Because here's the thing with the Volkswagen. So let me just finish this thought real quick. You open the door, the windows are off now. So now the windows are up and I'm going to go somewhere and my wife said, well, put the windows down so we don't melt in here or vice versa. You can't. I have to come back and hit the start button, turn it on and engage. It's bizarre. Just work. There's no reason why when I open my front door and my butt is like, it doesn't detect the weight of my seat, that everything goes off. The windows can't open. The door's locked and I can't unlock it. It was driving us absolutely crazy at every charge stop. So this is what I mean by like, stop thinking of your gas customers and embrace the EV. There's no start button. That should be like a mantra. If I was a... really quick, by the way, thank you, Jennifer, for the super chat. Really quick, Jennifer Montgomery, thank you for the super chat. She says, do any of you know if the full self-driving beta drivers have rented his or her Tesla on Turo and been kicked out of the program? I don't think there are any, and that would be scary and weird and dangerous. And I think that's part of the NDA, is what I believe. Ryan, does that sound about right?
So yes, briefly, I actually was right as that started to roll out, right before that started to roll out, I was invited to that and I had to tell them I couldn't. That would be too dangerous on both ends. So yes, but Alex had some points to share.
Yes, Alex, let's go. ID4.
Oh, so here's the thing. I also, so ID4 has both, right? When you approach the car, it's on, it's always on. And when you leave, it can turn itself off, but it also has a start stop button. When I, for the first time, got into it and I was like, well, that's stupid. But I realized that I was the one who was stupid. It's actually quite awesome. Specifically, like sometimes my phone won't pair up, you know, because I have like an older phone, and sometimes you have to turn the car off and then on to have it paired up, which you can't really do with a car that doesn't have a start stop button. Or sometimes I like taking naps in my car. I really do. I literally have a pillow in there, and I want my car freaking off. And I don't want to go into the, you know, I just want to click the button and have it off, and when I wake up, turn it back on. And the fact that it's both in ID4.
But what is on and off?
Really great.
What do you want off? The blower, the air conditioning?
Yeah, I want the air conditioning on.
You want to melt in your car or freeze in your car? That doesn't sound like a good idea either, right? So there's nothing else happening. There's no systems running. You don't have a gas engine running.
No, I get it, but sometimes I don't want air conditioning or the heater. Sometimes
so just turn off air conditioning. Yeah. So I guess you would, in this case, you would turn off the air conditioning. But at the same time,
it's a nighttime, and I don't want my screen in my face. I want to, you know, take a nice nap without any screen in my face, or without anybody knowing this car is on outside. I'm just saying, I found interesting uses for the on and off.
If you really want, you can turn a Tesla off. There are, you know, in the settings and controls, you can turn it off.
I get it, but you can't do it very quickly. You have to go into the menu and figure it out and stuff like that. I don't have to do that. I just have a button.
I'm curious what you think when you do your first.
You don't have to use this button if you don't want to. The car is on when you approach it. It goes to sleep when you leave it. It's always on.
It does, but the problem, the stop button is foolishly needless. I don't even know the purpose of it sometimes, but here's what it does do. It detects your seat. Like when you get out of the driver's seat, it goes and turns everything off. The windows don't work anymore, and this doesn't work anymore. These kinds of things. I'm curious, Alex, when you do your first road trip and you're at a Electrify America stop for an hour and 20 minutes or something charging, and you go to get a bag of chips or use the restroom and come back, and you're somebody else is already in the car, your girlfriend's in the car waiting and stuff. I think that feedback, which is what I did. We charged 6 times in a week on this 1,000-mile trip, and it was infuriating is the word I would use, because my wife was constantly locked out. She couldn't control the car because I got up out of the seat and stuff. Anyways, these are just the kinds of things I'm comparing with the Tesla. And also I did the math on the charge network. Electrify America was actually pretty good. I did have one incident, so I should probably share this story, right? This is probably the time because two people in this room on the top row had the identical story, which is bizarre. On the way to the Bay Area from San Diego, I was driving, and the ID4 tells me to pull over and charge at the station. The problem was that station was not even open at all. It was all cordoned off and shut down. So now I'm at the station with nothing, and I freak out because I look down at the range and it says 30 miles. I'm 40 miles from the next station and 35 miles from the previous station. So I call my dad. We're about 100 miles south of where he lives, and he's in the car at like 1 a.m, ready to go. And I was telling him, like, just wait for me, because at this point, even if you come and pick us all up, what am I going to do with the car? So we kind of go through all the things. Ryan mentions there's a motel. I think it was a Holiday Inn. And he actually had to pull in and park there and charge it for 8 hours to get enough range to be able to make it to the next station. That would have driven us crazy because unlike Ryan, I have two kids, ages 4 and 1. But luckily what ended up happening was we drafted behind a semi at a very unsafe distance at 55 miles an hour, just like Ryan did. And we went backward 35 miles to this station, charged it for an hour and a half at 2 a.m. because this Electrify America station was a 50 kilowatt station. That's why the car was clever and thought, we don't want you to waste your time there. We'll take you to this 150. That's not open yet.
I have a question. Was that one that was being constructed
Yes.
that had been open, or was it one? Because the reason
So,
I ask
Ricky-
is when I went down to San Diego, I got stuck. I had to stay at a different place overnight because my car took me to a charging station, or rather, my route planner took me to a charging station that was offline that I'd previously charged at a couple of years ago.
So there's a couple things here. One is I don't know where the root of this problem is. Yes, this happened to me as well, and I've not yet shared the video because I don't know how the story in like a succinct YouTube video. But absolutely, yes, we were doing a Model Y to Mach-E compare drive all the way to Las Vegas and back, and it was the Fireball supercharger, which I'd just been to 1 month earlier during the Silicon Valley takeover. And so I brought my Mustang Mach-E, and my videographer, whose phone I'm using right now to take this call, he was in the Model Y. And yeah, we pull up, and I had just left, we passed Harris Ranch thinking they'll be faster up at Fireball. And Fireball, they're putting in new chargers. I don't know how, like if they're significantly faster or better, but the one thing I will say is, again, if this is an Electrify America problem, it's one they really need to seriously consider, because not only are these cars not accurately reflecting the current charge situation. Sorry for the background noise. As long as that's the problem, that's a big problem. And then on top of that, we've got the issue where they shouldn't ever take a station completely down. There needs to be backup solutions. And so yeah, we stopped at the one hotel in town. We took the last room available, and we plugged into a 110. I put the trash can that was nearby over the cable.
Yes.
And we slept there for 5 hours until we had about 20, or we were at like 18 miles of range. By the time we left, we had 30, and we had to go north to the closest 50 kilowatt charge point station. So
This
Brian,
is exactly what
America,
happened to me. This is the same
And it
site
shouldn't
that so all three of us have been let down by that same location. It's on the I-5, just past Harris Ranch, in the bum whatever of nowhere.
And Nikki, I did look into this because when Ricky told me, and also I have a Electrify America story as well, but I looked into it. So apparently it's not the Electrify America, because on their app, I wasn't able to find that. It's the ID4's navigation system, from what I understand.
But it happened to Ryan too.
And the Mustang.
Yeah.
And the Mustang. So
Yeah.
maybe they're not feeding it, or maybe they're not checking frequently enough for new stations.
They're not.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
So in this case, I think there was more of an ID4 issue. But I also have a Electrify America /ID4 story that's a little different than yours. And full disclosure, Electrify America is one of my sponsors. But when I pulled up to the Electrify America station for the first time with my own ID4, I got an error, to charge. And so I'm like, I got free charging. What the hell? So I had to, and I tried three different stalls, and it all gave me an error on my app. And I finally called them, and it took them a while to figure it out, because the message was that, there's a problem with the charger. There's a problem with your charging. So we're looking for a hardware problem. And then finally they said, we're going to do it manually for you this time around. And they're like, oh, you don't have a credit card on file. You still need to have one because of the idle charges. And I'm like, okay, that's reasonable. And as soon as we put my credit card in, everything works. So the problem was the actually user interface, which honestly, I love Electrify America, but whoever did that should just be flat out fired, because when you can't tell me that my credit card is missing from my app, and you're making me think, and your own customer service think, that it's actually a hardware problem, you can't do this for a living. So I definitely I feel your pain, guys, and they definitely need to get on this like ASAP.
I think this is one area, we're trying to talk this conversation mostly about the vehicles and their individual performance, but charging is a significant part of performance. And this is one area you just called out, something that like Tesla has done better, which I've actually intentionally removed my credit card from the account once just to see what would happen. And you get a little notification on your screen. You can actually now add your credit card in the vehicle, but you can actually complete your first charge session, and it's the next one that you'd have any problems with. I've not pushed even that far. But that's an area where Tesla and a lot of these auto manufacturers have to be thinking about, how do we make sure that people aren't going to get stranded? How do we make sure that all of these experiences aren't the experiences that people are having? Because electric cars are better. They have the potential to be the best for everyone, but you have to make sure that people aren't going to get stranded and frustrated. Because if Ricky, if that was his first time trying an electric vehicle, he's got 1,000 miles visiting family up north. He's like, well, I can't reliably do that with my family. I can't use an EV. When in reality, like, they're gonna be better for everyone once the charging infrastructure is kind of tweaked and remastered, which Tesla has done well now for several years. They've had the time, they've learned lessons. Several years ago that you probably had an issue with the credit card, and the same thing you had, Alex, but now Tesla's beyond that, and Electrify America is just starting to learn these lessons.
Well, I think I feel it's overdue for them. I think something like a user interface should have been figured out a while back. I understand it's not easy to create a like the fast charging network, and they've done it at an amazing rate, right? And they are the fastest fast chargers in America. But something like this should have been taken care of. I mean, I just hire an intern out of MIT, and they'll take care of this for you.
Yeah. So the funny thing too, while I was stranded, I look across the street, and glowing in neon red or 80 Tesla chargers with no cars in them. So one thing I hope to see, first of all, is that all networks should talk. There needs to be this kind of overarching like API system where they can all work together with the right adapters or something, and standardization. The second thing is EA has made huge strides. There's new stations all the time. You can see it on the app, and you can kind of see them rolling out. But these companies, what they have to realize is Tesla is first party. They can go across the hall and go, hey, some guy said this thing happened. What gives? And they can talk to each other. This is Volkswagen and Ford and EA and Blink and ChargePoint. There needs to be a lot of like synergy here. They have to coordinate well. And there also has to be just generally, I'm not sure, I think it was Alex you mentioned or Ryan, Tesla's been doing this, I think it was Ryan, Tesla's been doing this a while, and they've figured out a ton. I'll give you an example. You drive in a Tesla for like a 500-mile trip, it'll take a second and go, okay, here's your route. Pull over here, charge here, and go here and do that. And it will not deviate. Unless you're driving like 140 miles an hour and you're blowing your battery range, unless you do something crazy, it doesn't change. The ID4, I put my 500-mile destination, started driving, and I could see in real time, every so often it would change from charge here and charge here, and then change to just charge here, and then it would jump back and forth. And what it's doing, as a software engineer, they're real-time averaging of how they're projecting your future range is a small window. It's far too small, because I hit a hill and I'm going uphill, and all of a sudden they think that my battery is going to be dead in 50 miles, and they're telling me to charge here, and then I go on the downhill and it says, no, forget that, stop, come charge over here. They need to work this out, because the second on my drive home, I had zero confidence in the car. My wife and I both had our iPhones. I had the ChargePoint app. She had EA open, and we were like hawks. We were checking for check-ins of like people who'd been to this station. I didn't look at the car once. I just ignored the car entirely, because once you lose faith in the thing, it's over. And to be fair, in contrast, in the Tesla, I've done, I think, 15,000 miles of these 1,000-mile road trips to the Bay, or 15 times. Zero problems. Zero times I pulled over and I
Yesterday,
didn't charge, or it changed on me or left me stranded. Zero times. I got so cocky that I didn't even think about the ID4. I said, yeah, I'll take your ID4 and drive it at midnight. Why not? I was so confident that I forgot that things can happen. Really quickly, thank you,
So,
Talisto, again
oh,
for the super chat. He says, what about PlugShare?
I think the best two apps that I use these days for charging, is I like using ChargeWay for figuring out where the high-powered charging stations are because it's no nonsense. But when I'm on the road, I use a better route planner. And again, I suspect I've done more long distance road tripping than most of you guys
I'm at
in
24,000 miles.
non-Teslas. I'm probably at about 50.
I think Ryan's probably
out of,
number one, actually.
yeah.
Yeah, Ryan's done the cannonball challenge several times.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So sorry, there's a
But
dog barking in the background.
outside of a Tesla is what I'm saying. So using networks like Electrify America, using a better route planner and Electrify America, I have only had one issue, and it was that station that caught all of us out. The rest of the time, EA has been really, really good. A better route planner uses your onboard data to figure out your route. It uses really good range prediction algorithms. They're based on, I think, an open source. I support them as much as I possibly can because they are agnostic about the car. They are agnostic about the charging network. And ultimately, that's what we need.
Do you guys
and
use...
they're built in now. They're built in now to the Polestar, too.
Do you guys use a better route
absolutely.
planner on iOS on your mobile phone?
I've used it on both iOS and Android.
Okay, the iOS app is terrible. It's almost unusable for me. Is it just me? I'm an iOS developer, and a better route planner, if you're watching this, your iOS app is unusably terrible. Please,
wait, what happened to the superior Apple products? How dare you, Ricky?
No, Apple's products are superior. That's why Apple users expect brilliant experiences, and the better route planner looks like it was made like for Windows 95 or something and ported over. It's terrible. So that one needs overhauling. But once you get it set up, a better route planner's backend logic is absolutely brilliant. It's really, really good. And it's built into cars like the Polestar, you said, right?
Yes, I think the only one that I'm aware of that it's built into is the Polestar, but Nikki seemed to imply that she's used the actual on-car data, which I've only ever used it on my phone with estimations about the vehicle. So I'm curious what that is, but yeah.
So in-car route data, I've used it with both Android and iOS with an OBD2 dongle that enables you to use real-world state of charge to predict where you're going and what your range will be. It is one of the best route planners. You're right, Ricky. It is buggy as heck. And once you set it up, you don't touch it. But it generally has been very reliable, and it's allowed us to drive all the way to Texas in a 2017 Bolt EV. It's allowed us to drive to Las Vegas multiple times with a trailer in tow and a roof box. And you tell the car, hey, I've got this on my car. I've got this much weight on board. I'm towing a trailer, and it figures it all out, and it is really good. Before you kind of stop talking about the cars, I do want to throw in an acknowledgement to Mustang with its plug and charge. That is the way forwards. I know it's old hat if you use a Tesla. I really know it's old hat if you use a Tesla. But being able to just turn up and plug in is how charging needs to be. We've got to ditch smartphones. We've got to ditch the assumption that everybody drives a car because they want a gadget on wheels. They don't. And the best car that I have driven this year that I want to see as a full electric vehicle that isn't is I've just driven the RAV4 Prime for a week. As a plug-in hybrid, it's one of the better plug-in hybrids on the market because it's got decent, you can get between 40 and 50 miles of electric range. That's not enough. But if Toyota was to wake up and make the RAV4 EV based off of the RAV4 Prime, it would fly off dealer lots because it's cheap and cheerful. It's not gadget filled, and you don't need a freaking PhD in information technology to use it. It's intuitive. I'll shut up.
Are we still talking about ID4 here? I mean, I know we took a detour to poop on Electrify America, but yeah.
Well, I'll finish on the ID4 side. So on the way to the Bay Area, I was infuriated. We got home at 4 a.m. when typically we would have been home by 1. But on the way back, like we said, we didn't trust the car at all with navigating us to stations. We took care of that. But I'll tell you what, the ID4 is the quietest car of all the ones we've mentioned. The wind noise, the air seals around the windows and stuff is the best in class. The road noise from the tires to the road, quietest of any car. And, one of the things we should all do on these kind of crossovers, take on a 500-mile trip. You'll see like how comfortable is your butt after 3 hours, right? The ID4 is superb. It is.
And
I think it's probably.
Massager.
I didn't know that until you told me later on. I didn't get a chance to try it out, but I'm sure
I'll
it's
tell
good.
you a lot of cool things about ID4. Just ask, man.
Yeah. Well, comfort wise, I'd say ID4 is, like Nikki and other people mentioned, not a sports car at all. You're not going to be, if you're looking for an enthusiastic driving machine, ID4 is not for you.
It's such a boring experience to drive.
But if you want a quiet, refined, comfortable, super great family long hauler, ID4.
I can't agree with you more. It's kind of the reason I got it.
Don't trust it to navigate you. Like it's not there yet.
I mean, you call it boring, call it what you will. I'm one of those old farts who prefers comfort and quiet over, beating Ferraris off of the street lights. And that's fun. Don't get me wrong, but I love how. And by the way, it does have pretty good power. Yesterday, knowing that we're going to be talking about it today, I was trying to beat people off of the red light, and I think I only lost once in an entire day. So it does have some pickup. In ID4, that's right.
You were trying to avoid the Teslas, then I think.
Alex, it has 1,000 pounds more than my Chevrolet Bolt, right? It's 1,000 pounds heavier than my Chevrolet Bolt EV. And it has one more horsepower. It has one more horsepower. If I'm going to choose a hot hatch feel, it's not the ID4. I know it's a crossover, but come on, it needs to have more get up than that.
I guess my point is this, though. There is a car for everybody. Recommending a car, I get people ask all of us, I'm sure, all the time, what electric car should I buy? I think any answer is insincere because it's like asking, well, which girl I should marry or what restaurant I should go to tonight, right? It's a matter of taste, it's a matter of mood, it's a matter of budget. Listen, I've driven Teslas before. I decided to switch. After long consideration, I've decided to go with ID4, and every day I drive it, I love it even more. I'm sure you've had the same experience with the Bolt, and I'm sure Ryan has the same experience, and Reiki with Teslas.
Yeah, you make
what
a
I'm
good
saying
point.
is that I think it's unfair to sort of criticize a very fine electric vehicle that's actually quite affordable, unlike many others that we've talked about, because you particularly may not like it when a lot of other people do. Don't forget, in Europe, that place that I'm from, it's actually a top-selling electric car right now, last time I checked, even over Tesla. Now, it doesn't mean that is ID4 better than Tesla just because it's selling better in Europe. No, it's just better to some people, and Tesla is better than others. So I think there's got to be some sort of understanding here that there are different cars for different people that are perfect for those particular people, just like women and sushi and everything else. I like,
really quickly,
as you call it, the boring light.
Sorry, huge shout out to Jarno
Somebody
for
paid
the
you
super
money.
chat.
I got it. Okay, yes.
Yes, we got a super chat from Jarno. Thank you so much. He says, keep up the good work, all of you. I hope we all get more EVs from multiple manufacturers. What is your background and how did you get into EVs? That's probably a good question, actually. I really appreciate that. And that is the theme of this entire talk. We're sitting here debating multiple different choices, and that's really important. One feedback I get from a lot of like really diehard Tesla enthusiasts is, why bother? Just get the Model Y. I don't want to live in a world where there's one car maker and 4 models of car and 5 color choices. Like that to me is that's like that's like some draconian movie or something, like some dystopian movie kind of thing. We need
And
hundreds
can
of
I
choices.
offer one more
Like,
thing though, especially for Tesla crowd? You know, your car, your Teslas will be better because of the ID.4s and Mustang Mach-E's of the world. If Tesla was the only manufacturer out there, you would not get as good of a car in the future as you would if
competition.
there would be competition.
Yeah.
So you are welcome, Tesla people, for the ID.4s of the world, because your cars, which I know you love, will be better. And I think that's awesome for everybody.
So Alex, I've got to say, what you just said felt like a mirror image of the conversation that I had with you offline in the chat last week when we were talking about the F-150. You don't see it. You don't see the point in it. And we had this conversation about how different people look for different things in the car. And I think that if there's one thing that I would kind of level against the fanboyism that exists in the industry right now, is that it is a failure to acknowledge that there are so many different needs, and we're all different, and we all have different responses, we all have different requirements. And so while this has been a friendly banter backwards and forwards about what each car has and what it is a subjective thing, you know, this is 100% subjective. And I think if this conversation means that we can get more people plugging into electric vehicles, that's really all I care about. I don't care who wins the battle. I just want to see more people driving around in electric cars. And I get a little buzz every time I go into a parking lot and the car pulls up to me that's also electric. Or, you know, I'm sitting at a traffic light and there are 5 electric cars behind me. That makes me feel good.
I completely agree with you.
I totally agree.
Completely agree with you.
And yeah, the only thing that when we can discuss the, you know, how one is better than the other is when we're talking about the effort from the manufacturer, like we did with the Honda E. But as far as, you know, appeal to the customers, as long as you're driving an electric car, you're my friend.
That's so well said. Like, there's comments here like F-150 is better than Tesla. That is the wrong way to look at this, right?
Yeah.
It's normal to have
Absolutely.
your team. Like, let's say, for example, I'm a fan of the Bulls and you're a fan of the Warriors. That's fine, but we're all fans of the NBA. Without the NBA, there's no situation where these guys are getting together and competing, right? That's kind of the game. We should all be fans of EVs. And no one should be thinking about the F-150 versus Cybertruck, because that's not... We live in bubbles. Well, maybe we can talk about this next. I think we should transition to this. We live in bubbles where you think everyone is this way or that way, but the world is much more complex or diverse. But the question is the F-150 better than the gas F-150, better than the gas Ram?
So-
That's the question we should all be
Yes.
asking. I think so many
two
people
quick
have gotten
things
so caught up in this kind of brand loyalty thing that we kind of have lost sight of that a little bit.
2 quick things before we get into that. One would be maybe answering that question of where we're coming from, you know, what industries we've all come from before this. And then the second thing is I completely agree with the intent to say, yes, you know, more EVs and broader EVs is a good thing. I am going to be the one detractor here and say, at the early stages, I think the most utilitarian vehicle like at this stage is going to be the quote unquote best, not associated with brand. But I do think that you could say there's objectively a best for the one that has, you know, the most overall functions. If it covers 95% of the market, it's better than a vehicle that only supplies to 20% of the market. So that, you know, the Mini Cooper Electric, I think it's great for the people that decide to get that. But is it better than a Model Y? I think I can objectively say it's not better because it doesn't have as much utility. That's my stance.
Yeah. So really quickly, we had a couple of super chats, and one of them is really funny. Thank you, Jennifer Montgomery, who this is kind of related to what we were talking about before. She says, every EV unveiling should be dedicated to Elon Musk. Without him, we would be decades away from EV unveilings after EV unveilings. It's true.
Agreed.
This was not a market. This was not a thing before Tesla.
Yeah.
And no car company wanted to do this. They have fought
And I'll add to
tooth and
that,
nail not to do
thank
this.
you for our jobs, Elon, because I wouldn't have this job without
That's also
him.
true. And then the next one's great. Jorg says, don't interrupt a good discussion for a super chat. So actually, I held off on announcing that one until...
Ricky, you weren't supposed to read that one.
The next one, Eric Kessler, who's one of our favorite fans, thank you for the super chat. He says, pry my GTI 6-speed out of my cold, dead hands, but essential for all EVs. They do mitigate range anxiety. Model Y long range is my relaxing transport daily. Still, max EV competition is great for all. This is sort of the thing. There's a lot of people I know who love that. They're going to buy that last manual transmission car. I feel this way sometimes. I've had 7 manual transmission cars in my life, and 1 automatic, which was our SUV that we have for our family. I get that feeling. So there's got to be a little bit of something for everyone. I would love to see a e-Golf, a proper e-Golf, not a compliance car that they stuck batteries in the trunk. Like, I would love to see VW do the Golf again, kind of a little hot hatch. Not sure that they would sell that great in the US, but in Europe
they have
really,
one,
really popular.
ID3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ID3, no, the Volkswagen I really want to drive is the IDX.
Which one is that?
So Volkswagen let a team of skunk engineers basically in their spare time take the drivetrain and the battery pack out of the recently announced ID4 GTX. They took the GTX's guts and they put it inside an ID3, and you're left with the IDX, which is a hot hatch vehicle. But we already have the beginnings of excellent hot hatches in Europe. Let's not forget about, the e-Corsa and the 106 or the 206e that it is, 280. I can't remember the numbers now because it's the weekend. But there are some great little hot hatches coming to market, and I think they are great at getting younger people into the market because they tend to be more affordable than massive cars. And my only criticism of the market right now is that we have our cars, like the vehicles are too expensive. And I think that's one of the things that Ford is going to solve with the F-150. It's already shown that because it's producing an entry-level version of that truck for a very low price because of the way it thought about how to engineer it. And I think we're going to get a hot hatch in Europe from Ford. I would like to see a Fiesta EV or something similar in Europe based on ID3 technology, but please God, give it more beans.
I hope you're right, but I don't know if the technology and the Lightning scales up or down all that well. I'm a little bit worried that they're selling a one that's 40,000, but they really, only at dealerships it seems like they'll sell like a $52,000 one. So I hope you're right, and that the Lightning is kind of that down market, and that they're able to deliver that, especially as they make other vehicles down market, because the engineering with the pouch cells and it is kind of less expensive initially, but like. Yeah, I don't want to sound too much like a Tesla fanboy here, but like the Cybertruck is a rethink in order to make it less expensive. And I'm afraid that the older technology that Ford is relying on is more available now, but won't scale in the long term to make cheaper vehicles that people want to buy in the long term.
So we should probably switch gears at this point and talk about the pickup truck segment. How are you guys doing on time? I haven't really talked about time or anything.
Good.
Okay, if everyone's good, we can talk and we can wrap this up whenever as well. Because I think we did really cover. I'd say that 1 hour chat was probably as good as you're gonna find on YouTube, covering the ID4, the Model Y, like some of the pros and cons of the Mach-E, those kinds of crossover cars. So now switching gears and talking about electric pickup trucks, which is a hugely important market for the United States because pickup trucks are the best-selling cars. They always are. If you take that the number one best-selling car is a pickup truck. Chevy has 2 models. They have the Silverados and the GMCs, but if you combine them, they'd be number 2. Dodge is up there. I mean, these things are massively important. We talked about the differences in Europe versus America. America is wide open spaces. I live 500 miles from my mom and dad. There are probably people in other parts of the world who 500 miles would be like 5 countries probably from a driving perspective. So we just drive a lot, and we have a lot of stuff to haul apparently, so this is really important, and we should probably talk about the Rivian R1T Cybertruck and the F-150 Lightning. I've kind of talked to some of you guys. I haven't talked to Ryan a whole lot. Who wants to jump in and kind of give their first thoughts about the 3?
Well, why don't we start by kind of disclosing any commitments that we've made? Because I suspect that at least 2 of us have got a truck or some sort on reservation.
Oh, okay.
I have a Cybertruck reservation. I don't have a Rivian, and I definitely don't want the F-150 reservation.
Any Hummers?
Huh?
No.
I said any Hummers? Any Hummers in the
Oh
crowd?
yeah, no Hummer.
You know,
Great car. Hummer is a great car, just not for me.
what's funny
Yeah.
is I keep getting this, and it's psychological at this point, but I keep ignoring the Hummer EV entirely. I don't know why that is. For some reason, I think it's the pricing. Like the Lightning, I think will appeal to a lot of people. The Hummer is like this kind of over the top thing at 100 and whatever thousand. Maybe the price is why, but I guess we can talk Hummer as well. I have a Cybertruck reservation. I really like the F-150 as well. Not sure I'll do either, just because we really barely need one car at all. We all work from home here, so we'll see.
Yeah.
What about you, Nikki?
So the two reservations I have right now, I might as well talk about both of them. I have a reservation for an Aptera. I don't
That's not
expect
a
them
pickup
to. No, I
hate
don't
to tell
expect
you
them
this.
to
Yeah, you should-
necessarily
if you-
bring that to market, but that is my first reservation. And I want one because it was in Star Trek and it's cool and it's super efficient, and efficiency in the engineering of it really makes me go. But when we're talking about pickups, it's the F-150 Lightning that we announced that we'd put down money on Thursday.
I saw your Twitter. Yeah.
And I feel really bad about being able to do that. I guess it's one of the side effects of being in this industry is that we get access to embargoed material on a regular basis. Car companies invite us to things. You got to drive it, or you got to ride in it, right, Ricky? You didn't get to drive it.
Correct.
But we get pre-warning that these vehicles are coming, and so we can actually say to our partners, "How about it?" And in that case, my partner went, "Yeah, that we should totally put money down on that." So, yeah.
So really quickly, thank you for the super chat, RCDIY. Thank you for the super chat. He says, why do you think Rivian started their own bubble charging network? This kind of ties into the R1T potentially. So will anyone else step up and partner with Tesla to expand their charging? This is a really, really interesting question. I thought Rivian's choice was an interesting one. I mean, they do have CCS, right? So they support the larger scale. Do they not? Or do they have a proprietary plug?
No, they have CCS.
Okay. But they have some proprietary network, which to me, that's kind of like you have the standard plus extra. That's okay. I'm okay with that. If they want to spend their money building out charging infrastructure, which is wildly expensive and not very profitable, that's up to them. But at least they're playing ball and have the CCS standard. That's kind of my take there. Telesto says, will new car dealerships go extinct? I think, thank you for the super chat there. We can maybe tie that into the conversation. Rivian and Tesla, direct to consumer, they don't have to deal with any dealerships. Whereas the Hummer EV and the F-150 do. So that could be maybe part of how we answer the question as well. And then generally a super chat from Gino Delizo. Thank you again so much. He says, thank you for the debate discussion and the effort you put into the content on your respective channels. This needs to certainly be done again. I agree. So let's
Ricky, can we go back to the one with the Rivian charging
Sure.
network? Because I think that does tie in. I mean, I make no secret about it. I'm not very impressed. I think I'm one of the few people who are not impressed by the F-150 at all, the electric one. But like with that said, of course, I think it sells very well. There will be plenty of people who absolutely will love it. But I think one of the mistakes they've made is that, Rivian was smart. They said, well, we know that our customers will take this truck to the places where, they might be a little bit, have a little bit of an anxiety for the range because, you take it somewhere and then they do some off-roading with completely kills the range. We're probably hauling stuff. So they're installing their fast chargers where there are no other fast chargers like Electrify America. If you go, they're not going to build their fast chargers there yet, right? So that will take care of those Rivian drivers where if I'm going to have the F-150 with 230 mile range, I'm going to put a trailer on it. Now it becomes 150 maybe at best mile range. And now I go somewhere where I also want to do off-roading, because it's still a truck. I might be in a lot of trouble. And if Ford does not give them some sort of a choice where they can, recharge, they might have to end up charging from, another Rivian truck or the Ioniq 5 in the area. So I think that's one of the biggest drawbacks that I thought and flaws in the truck.
Alex, you're going to take your trailer off-road?
You know what I mean, Nikki. You take a trailer to the site, then you take the truck, You should
Drop
really
this
watch
trailer.
the Ford's a press video. They explain everything except for why the range is so little.
Yeah. I want to throw
So
out there that we're making an assumption here that Rivian won't open up that network, and I think there's a chance that they will. Also, I didn't get a chance to pre-qualify. I've got several dozen Cybertruck reservations just with the rental fleet plans. I think it's going to be, again, with that easy user interface, I think it's going to be the kind of vehicle that is a great rental, and a lot of people that don't want to buy it but might want to try it. I also have a Hummer reservation. I don't think I'm going to be going forward with that, but I kind of put reservations in for all of the vehicles within reason. I don't think I have an Aptera reservation. I have to check. And I do have so the Rivian Cybertrucks, plenty of them. And then I didn't yet put in my F-150 reservation, but that was only because that night I was kind of running around trying to get a whole bunch of things done. But I do. Again, there's a chance that that's like one of the best for the price at the time. We'll just have to wait and see.
Okay. So,
Nikki, before you start, can I just say one thing? Thank you to D1 Street for your super chat. He says, I hope the F-150 convinces non-EV people to consider an EV, worried that Ford will cause sticker shock and range anxiety for a lot of people, as this might be their first EV. So,
okay.
Go ahead.
So let's start at the beginning, right? First of all, let's not beat about the bush about Rivian. It marketed its truck from day one and has been marketing its truck from day one at lifestyle truck people. It is marketing it as a vehicle for people who are affluent, who've got money, who want to go out and have fun in the countryside at the weekend. It has marketed it primarily at people who want to go surfing, who want to go skiing, who want to do outdoors adventure-y types. It's got the stuff in the bed. And a great example of this, is I remember in its early press material, it talking about you can dry your wetsuit from the back of your sockets in the back of the truck, or as someone memorably said on my channel, you can put your fursuit hanger up and dry your fursuit after you've been a giant animal for a couple of hours. All of those things are aimed at lifestyle truck usage. They're not aimed at work truck usage. And the conversation that we were having earlier about other people having different trucks and different concepts and different ideas is that the F-150 is built around a work truck, primarily marketed and sold as a work truck. Does that mean people are using them as lifestyle trucks? Absolutely. Does it mean that a large number of people are buying the Raptors and other F-150 high performance variants, the Lightnings before that, and they're just literally taking it to work to park in a corporate parking lot and then back home again, and the truck maybe only sees dirt at the weekend and maybe then even only occasionally and spends most of its time sitting on parking lots looking pretty at Cars and Coffee? Absolutely. But for people who are using a truck for work, who want a truck that they can beat up and feel comfortable beating up because they know they can buy spare parts for it at their local Ford dealer, especially if they live in the middle of America, where it is just easier for them to drive the 50 miles to their local Ford dealer, pick up the part, take it home and install it because time is money for them. And they don't want to pay a mechanic to do it because they know how to do it themselves. Then I think Ford has that competitive edge. There's a really great article, and I can't remember which outlet did it. They did an interview with Darren Palmer, who's one of the key people at Ford. He's kind of head of electrification at Ford, talking about the economies of scale that they've already got planned for the F-150, because the F-150 makes use of a lot of the parts that already exist in the gasoline truck. Basically, it's a ladder-on chassis, just like all of the other Fords. The chassis is different. We've got independent rear suspension. We've got the battery pack kind of sandwiched in. We've got the motors front and rear. But everything above that is pretty much the same as it would be on a regular F-150. That means it can save millions of dollars because it doesn't have to retool its facilities. It doesn't have to...
How is it a good thing, though, Nikki?
economies of scale, Alex. If you are making a truck for a large number of people and you are able
No,
to
I understand
bring
the
that
economy of
price
sales.
down.
I just don't understand why do I care about Ford's business? I care more about consumers. And I think me and you can agree that it's better to build an electric vehicle on its own platform. And when they convert these gas vehicles to electric, we all go like, oh, well, they just, not
Okay,
trying
come
hard
on.
enough.
So the quick,
Pickups are not built to be efficient, Alex. They're
Well,
not built to be efficient.
so when you say platform,
pickups
you
will
can.
never be.
What they've done is their ladder body on frame truck platform is completely different for the EVs. They've restructured everything. They moved everything out for outbound motors and the battery placement and stuff. The bed that goes on top, which is how body on frame truck construction happens, that's very similar. One thing Ford has to their
That's not what
advantage,
Nick
Alex,
is saying, though.
is all the
I don't think
buttons,
that's what
all
Nick
the
is saying,
seats.
though.
But what I'm saying is like all the Ford can make a cheaper car because the seat and the screens and the knobs and that's all from their parts bin. They could just
So then a double standard,
exactly.
right? So then
What?
we're going to use a double standard for Ford that we're just going to give them a pass.
Alex, pickup trucks are not cars, honey. They're not the same. They're built in a
Vehicles.
different way.
So
No,
It's
the
not
key,
about
the
market
key to
for
building an
pickups
electric.
trucks
is
versus
different to the
cars. It's
market
about
for
how you
SUVs.
approach building it's how you approach building an electric vehicle.
So
Building an
again,
electric vehicle from scratch is going to make a better electric vehicle, truck or a car. So and by the way, you know what else would help the F-150? If they would actually make the body style that's better for the wind resistance, obviously, and they didn't because it's just going to be another F-150, just like
So
they're
I
building
can-
one for the gas.
So I can cover this a little bit, right? So again, I talk crap about like the e-Golf because the e-Golf is a unibody construction. There's nowhere to put the batteries, so they got to go stick them in places that's taking from the passenger area, right?
Right.
So the e-Golf is a compromise. The Ford F-150 is not because of the way the body on the truck on frame construction, that ladder platform, the batteries are as low as they could be. There's no lower place they could be. There's room for the two outbound motors. Like that part is fully
I'm
new.
somewhere in the middle here.
Yeah.
In the middle here because Alex does make a good point. You could potentially achieve more range with a different design.
No,
And what Nikki
I
suggests
agree.
is true because you can keep the costs down, which does trickle down to the customer of a less expensive truck and an easily repairable truck.
That's
But
all I'm
Ford
saying,
already
actually.
has a platform on which it's based, right? So if Ford went back to the drawing board now, it would be longer before that truck arrived. It would have to invent a whole new set of accessories for that truck. You can go online and buy so many different accessories for the F-150. And Ford has made a point in saying all of those accessories will fit in the Lightning. So somebody who already has a pickup truck, we're talking work people here. They're saying 40 grand for the entry level version. That is a big deal. They're going to have vehicle to grid connectivity in the truck. All trucks will have vehicle to grid connectivity. All trucks will have power takeoff capability. And that means that customers who are using that truck to earn money can use that truck to earn money in ways that they could previously not do. They don't have to take a gasoline generator with them. They don't have to worry about spending expensive repair bills for engine issues, and they don't have to replace the oil and everything every so many thousand miles. They can abuse it because electric vehicles stand up really well to rough abuse.
So yeah,
I get all of this.
all of the utility.
As long as it's enough range. As long as it's a good enough EV for long range.
Okay, so you switch from defending Ford as a company. I don't care how Ford does it. I don't care how they do it. I don't care when they just need to do it for the consumers. I'm on the side of the consumers. What you said last actually can resonate with me more just because I only care about consumers and not the corporation that is Ford in this case. But at the same time, what I think is the number one thing they could do for the consumers is not just the fact that they won't have to buy an extra part that they already have for their existing F-150, but that it actually has enough range and they can charge faster and the chargers are more accessible to
your
the
ID4 has less range, Alex, right?
My ID4, well, okay,
Yeah.
wait, hold on a second. First of all, no. I mean, it has 250 versus 230 or 300, but don't forget, my ID4 is not a truck. Trucks, if you use them correctly, I've heard this somewhere, that they actually have to put stuff on the back in the bed, and you haul a trailer and so forth. So when you use them correctly, the range of 230 or 300 miles going down as much as
Well,
half.
so
And you
okay,
know,
so I
so let's
had
not compare the range of an ID4 with my hockey equipment on the back and an F-150 with a
so
trailer.
here.
That's just
Okay,
not
let me
fair.
let me jump in here. Right. So I had a chance to meet with Ford, and so there's a couple things that they're doing. So let me tackle the first point about it looks very conventional. Well, that's how you get a truck for 39,000 something, right? Look at the Hummer EV that costs 100,000. You know why? They don't have any. They're building a whole new design, and they don't know how many they'll sell, so they have to recoup the non-recurring R&D up with every sale. That's tough.
Tesla did
With
it.
Ford, so what Ford is doing is really smart for that reason. The most important part you have to get right is the foundational, the structure of how you put the battery pack. They've redone that entirely. That's wholly different than their gas lineup. Okay. Now the part bin on top of that builds on top is common, but again, those compromises are how you get to this price point. First
It's
of all,
lighter
Ricky,
and
I
frame, though.
don't
It's
care
the same
about
style.
Ford. I don't know what you do.
no, no,
I
no.
don't
So
care
let's
about how
just
Ford gets it. And by the
no,
way,
no. So let me.
don't tell
So
me that hold on a second, but don't tell me that unconventional design is not possible for 40,000, because I've heard Tesla is doing one of those,
but
and it's very unconventional.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing. Who told you people want unconventional design? Right?
No, I'm
We
not
live
saying
in
they
our
want to.
bubbles of stuff. Like there are
Yeah, we
lots of
do.
people who don't want a Cybertruck. There are
That's
people
not
who
what he's
want a
saying.
truck. Right? They
What I'm
just
saying
want a
is
Ford
that
F-150, but it's electric.
And
That's
can I legitimately ask, for those who have pickup reservations, who here intends to use it as a work vehicle? Ryan is kind of in a weird space because he's renting them out. So but Alex, I hear you. But when you say, yeah, the range is going to drop, are you pretending that the F-150 that can tow 10,000 pounds and has 26 miles per gallon still gets 26 miles per gallon when it's towing 10,000 pounds? Because, buddy, it doesn't. And
not saying
yes,
that, but that one has almost
the
a
problem,
600-mile range,
Alex,
Nikki.
yeah.
I mean, let's do
that's right.
let me
math
finish,
here.
hon.
That one
That's
has almost
Please let
triple
me
of the
finish.
range.
Please let me finish. If we did that, if we said, okay, we're going to build a pickup truck and we're going to call it the Alex pickup truck, and it's got 600 miles of range, that 600 miles of range would cost you 250 grand. Now, if you want to build a 600-mile EV, you'd be looking at $250,000, I bet. Something that a pickup truck that large, you'd be looking at that kind of money. If you were starting from scratch, this was if you're starting from scratch. You're not Tesla, you're not Ford, you are starting from scratch. I think what Ford has done is it's looked at the data from its customers. And I think one thing that it's just totally disingenuous that people do in the industry, both people watching and us, all of us, is we pretend that automakers haven't done their market research. They have. They know that their trucks are used in a variety of applications, and they have to pick this bell curve of use. There will be Ford pickup truck customers for which this truck is not useful, either because it doesn't have an 8-foot bed, it has a crew cab and a 5.5, or because they need to tow 10,000 pounds 100% of the time, and they're doing 300-400 miles a day, or because they need something that the Lightning doesn't have. But when you're designing a product, your goal is to try and cover the center part of the bell curve of use. And the center part of the bell curve of use is a lot of these trucks are used on farms where they might do maybe 100 miles in a day. They're used on construction sites by local construction crews who live within 50 miles of their work site. They're used by people who are small business owners, such as myself. I need that for putting crew and camera gear in. We're going to use it as a chase vehicle. We're going to load it up for road trips. And yeah, road trips are going to be harder when it's fully laden than when it's fully empty. But and going to the local wood place for my wife, the lumber yard, so she can put wood in the back of the truck and drive it and pull, logs and things, which we can't do with the Bolt. We can tow cut lumber, but we can't tow fresh lumber. And I think the challenge is that, again, it's out of our bubble, right? It's very easy to point holes at a product and say, well, this person's not going to use it because, and we have to acknowledge that a large number of people will find this useful and it will save them money. And Ford has got to go with that middle ground. That's all I'll say about it.
Can I respond? I mean, I know you've hit on 5 or 6 points, so I like to respond on a couple. I think it's a bad idea, first of all, to compare the electric F-150 to the gas one, because you're going to lose that argument, because the gas one not only has almost 3 times as much range, but also has tons of gas stations everywhere. So comparing those two is not going to do us any favor. But again, I'm not really quite understand why. Why people are on some side of Ford. Oh, it's going to be really expensive for them to make it, or they have to go with a conventional body style because it's a lot of R&D. I don't care how they do their business. I only care about what they produce for consumers. And I'm telling you that the work truck and a truck that people take off-roading and haul stuff with, 230 miles for it is not that much. So if you're saying that, this is a great truck, as long as you don't use it as a truck, to haul stuff and have a trailer, then I guess I will agree with you. But at the same time, I'm sorry, I also know a lot of people who have trucks and they do haul stuff and they do actually use it to go off-roading and use a trailer, and they go pretty far out there where there are no DC fast charging.
All right, so I'd like to jump in right there. So really quickly, thank you, Nick, for the super chat. He says Ioniq and Niro use multiple drivetrains, no compromise. Yeah, those are purpose-built EVs. Those are not compliance cars. And then Pebmets, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Thank you for the super chat. He says, the biggest thing stopping me from even looking at an EV truck is range. As soon as I can put my 29-foot, 8,000-pound trailer on it, charging is inconvenient. Pulling it through and charging stations and stuff, I've thought about that as well. So let me come back to this. When I met with the team, they haven't announced the battery size yet, okay? So one thing that kind of irritates me about my Tesla is the range they said I'd get is not even close. Like, I get 50 miles less, right? So you can claim whatever range you want, right? At the end of the day, I think what Tesla did is they want to get the big number. They want to get people's eyeballs rolling like, wow, that's a really good number. My Performance Model 3 gets 250 on a great day. It is not even close to 300, not even close. And I did a little poll on Twitter. I got over 1,200 votes. And the average person said that their consumption was around 300 watt hours per mile, which means none of them are getting anywhere near what Tesla's claiming either. In comparison to Taycan, they say they get 200 miles of range. I know 4 Taycan owners. I drove with one of them in Austin at fully charged. He got 288 miles, and he was at like 10% to go charge. So the thing is, as every consumer, you have the expectation of how you want to judge this. Porsche said our people are going to be flooring it and racing it. So when they get 200 miles, they're happy. But if they're cruising at 70 miles an hour on the freeway and they get 280 miles, they're ecstatic, right? Ford can do the same exact thing. And I think they're going to. Based on everything I heard from them at this event, they have sensors in the bed to detect the weight of how much you're carrying. They have strain gauges on the hitch to detect how much you're towing. They have all these other things to factor it in. Now, Ford can do the same thing where they say this truck has 300 miles of range, and then people are out there testing it like we're driving a 70 on the freeway with nothing in the back and we're getting 380. They could use a big battery pack, right? So, and Ford, I think, will do that. And the reason is Tesla being way off on their range doesn't really hurt because people love their cars. My car is so fast, I'm okay with it. I'm not taking it back. I'm fine with it. But a Ford owner, you told a Ford owner to ditch the gas car and buy this unknown thing, and you're not going to promise and deliver on your range, you're dead in the water. And Ford understands that very well. Again, with my time with the chief engineer and their team, I believe their pack is going to be on the very conservative side. So that's the thing. You guys have to remember that there's details that are not flushed out yet, and they have not revealed for a very good reason, because I think the numbers are going to be very conservative, and that's a smart thing.
There's also embargo stuff,
with the load. Why not release the numbers with the load? I mean, for example, look at Daimler's truck, for example. When they release
no truck releases miles per gallon ratings with a load. That's not done.
No, they don't.
No, you can release both. You can.
What I'm saying is no one does it. It's too many variables.
Nobody does it.
What kind of load is it? Is it a Is it an
But it's not
Airstream?
against the
Is it
law.
a big block? Is it a horse trailer? Like, it depends. There's too many variables to
Well, okay,
claim
so
that.
that's why I mentioned the Daimler truck. What Daimler did, they basically said with a full load, this is what the range is. What I'm suggesting is that we should get a regular range and with a full load range. And from what I know, it's not against the law to do that.
The difference, Alex, is that with a Class 8 semi, like the Daimler trucks, they're using a fairly standardized trailer setup, right? And you know the aerodynamic drag for that. You don't know the aerodynamic drag of what you're towing. Last weekend, a friend of ours gave us a big tool chest, big, heavy, old-fashioned tool chest, and we had to load it up onto the back of the trailer. I towed that with my Chevrolet Bolt, and I got about 1/2 the range that I normally get towing. Not when I'm not driving with that trailer. Just because of the drag that thing was producing. I think, Ricky, it's also important for us to note here that Ford is trickling out information agonizingly slow, which is ticking me off slightly. And I don't know about you guys, but there's more embargoed information that I have that I can't talk about until tomorrow. I suspect you're the same. And there's a couple more embargoed things planned in the next couple of weeks. So we should probably preface or bookend this with, there's a lot we can't talk about yet.
So, and really quickly, we should mention that the same concerns that Alex you have, they all apply to the Cybertruck and to the Rivian too. So to be fair, your criticism is for all of them. Like, based on my concern actually with the Cybertruck is based on how Tesla has done my Model 3. I'm worried their 500 miles is going to be 400 miles by the time I get it, or whatever. I don't know. Ryan,
500
what do you
miles
think?
cut in half is much better than 230 miles or 300 miles cut in half. Or
Again, though, remember that.
From Rivian.
Remember how people claim their ranges, right? They might be wildly understating it. German cars, like the BMW M3, always makes more horsepower than what they say they do. That's a German thing. Germans like to under-promise, over-deliver, right? Teslas appear to be kind of the other direction. But these are things that car companies get the right to do. So we don't know what the 300 miles of range for the Ford will be. We don't know what the 300 miles of range for the Rivian will be. But it could be wildly different based on,
Could be, sure.
Trivia.
They're not always apples to apples.
I can't hear Ryan. He's talking. He might be muted.
He is. I think he's still
Ryan,
muted.
jump in.
I think he's still muted. While you fix that, I'll just throw in a little bit of trivia. You know what the most accurate car company is in the world, or at least it was, in terms of gas mileage, meeting its gas mileage? You're never going to guess.
I have no idea. I really have no. I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued though. I don't know.
Jaguar Land Rover, at least a couple of years ago, was the car company that if you bought a Jaguar Land Rover product, whether it was a Jaguar or a Land Rover or a Range Rover, it was most likely going to meet or exceed its EPA or whatever figures, partly because they're so terrible at gas mileage, but they were the most accurate in terms of testing versus real world.
Interesting. Why do you think that is? Is there? Do you have any? Is that going to like build into a story about?
I think it's just. I wonder if it's British understatement.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a very good line in Star Trek where where Scotty says to Geordie LaForge, a good engineer is always a wee bit conservative, at least on paper. And I think that's something that Ford's doing. I agree with what you said about range. I think that you're going to be able to drive the F-150 Lightning unladen with a 300-mile, what they say is the 300-mile battery pack. I'm sure it's going to be possible to get in excess of 400 miles out of it if you are driving it like you want to be efficient. And you're driving it, at sensible speeds. And I think Ford knows that it's too big to screw that up. Why would Ford say it can achieve 230 miles or 300 miles, and then when it goes on sale, it's going to achieve less than that? Because that would instantly hand the market to Tesla or Rivian or whoever else is in the market.
I think we lost Ryan.
I think we did.
We
Well,
did.
I'll connect him as soon as he comes back. I think he had some kind of an audio issue. But what do you guys think about the Rivian? I think the Rivian has a 300-mile and a 400-mile range option, I believe. And the Cybertruck has all the way from 250 up to 500-mile range.
500, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So
There's Ryan.
do we have the same concerns about range generally for all the vehicles? Is there... Ryan, tell us, you can say something.
And can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
There you go.
All right. Whew.
We're talking
The
about Rivian.
I was going to talk about the range of the Cybertruck and some hopes there, some wishful thinking about aerodynamics, but I can pass on that for now. But yeah, at the end of the day, I agree with what was said earlier that Ford needs to over deliver on that range, and that's going to be the best thing they can do is under promise and over deliver on range.
Yeah, it's a tough one. And I think we're asking the right questions, and so are the people who are going to be buying these trucks. When I tow something, am I going to be able to actually do it? Is there going to be wild levels of anxiety when I charge and have to drive 100 miles and I see my range depleted? I will say one thing, the more efficient, the more aerodynamic your car is, the more the range, like when you tow something or all those things that dirty up the airstream, when you have a dirty air load, it reduces range a lot. Whereas if you're if for a truck, for example, the F-150, I'm trying to guess. If I had to guess, my Performance Model 3 has about a 250 to 280 watt hours per mile efficiency when I'm just driving around. I would imagine the Ford is in the 350s or 380s, 380 watt hours per mile, something like that. So they have to have the extra batteries to cope with it, and the reductions. It's the same reason why like a gas truck doesn't seem to get such worse range, because they're so terribly inefficient anyway. Like 65% of all that energy is burnt as heat to begin with. So even though they do take a hit when they're towing and stuff, you're wasting so much energy already that it's just not as big a percent.
Let's go to the extreme. If you were to tow
Sure.
with an Aptera, it's a 500, 600 mile, compact EV, really designed for aerodynamics, and you try to tow with that, you're going to get 10% of the range.
Right.
Versus if you're towing, with
Right.
maybe an F-150, you might get 60 or 70% of the range versus a Cybertruck, which is designed to be somewhat aerodynamic. It's unknown, but what we're trying to highlight there is, how big is that delta and how significant is it off of from what's expected? And I think setting clear expectations, setting low expectations and beating them across the board is going to be valuable. And I'm afraid because of how Tesla approaches things, it's so engineering focused. They're not thinking that they have to coddle the customer and say, hey, our range is a bit lower. Like if you're actually, Tesla's ranges are all based at like 55 miles per hour to give you the maximum stated range. And they assume that you as a consumer know that if you're speeding, it's going to have an impact. So I hope that Ford being a little bit more consumer friendly in their marketing and branding of that, or at least in whatever final pack they deliver. And similarly, I hope Rivian, Rivian said 300 400 plus. Both of those are with pluses. That they all have to over deliver or really coddle the customer. And again, I think Ford is doing that with all that measuring that they're trying to do is really tell the accurate range. And in some ways, the Mustang already shows that they calculate weather where Tesla does not incorporate weather into the range estimations.
So Ricky, if I can answer your question. So look, here's the thing. I think when you use a truck as a truck, you're going to lose a lot of range, whether when you tow, when you're off-roading or whatever. So the longer range you have as an EPA, which is an estimation, I know some people overachieve, some underachieve, the better your towing range is going to be. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
so the longer range, and out of these three, Cybertruck in the Rivian is way ahead of the F-150.
Yeah. So the EPA estimation is wildly understood. It's not well understood. If I build a car that has 100 miles a gallon and I go to the EPA and I say, hey, this car can achieve 20 miles a gallon, they'll do their course and go, approved. It's not as important as you think. The F-150 that I drove to the event that day, I had a hybrid 2021 F-150, and it's supposed to get like 25 or something miles a gallon. I got 18 miles a gallon with one person, not even a bag, not even a backpack, by myself on the freeway, 80 miles an hour. I was getting 18 miles a gallon. So I think what we probably should do is wait for the test to come back. There will be people who have a chance to put these through the paces and figure out what's what, and figure it out. Did I hear Nikki's leaving? I think you're
Nikki,
muted.
you're on mute. Nikki, you're on mute.
It's just sequentially muting us.
Sorry. Yeah, no, it's my first family function in 18 months. We're all vaccinated now, so we're actually able to have Sunday lunch together.
I think we should just all call it then. We've been doing this for 2 hours. Thank you all for joining. This was incredible insight. Incredible insight from all of us.
And maybe I loved it. Maybe we should repeat this. Maybe we can take turns in hosting it on our channels.
That's a good idea.
Respective channels.
I really agree. And by the way, for all of our viewers, I'm going to put links to their 3 channels in the description. But if you love electric vehicle news, these 3 guys do a really good job of covering all of it. There's not a car out there that you could buy that they don't cover. I don't really cover a whole lot on my channel, to be honest. I cover stuff when I feel like it. But if you want like hardcore electric vehicle coverage, these 3 guys are 3 of my favorite channels on YouTube. So please definitely head over to their channels and subscribe. You're gonna like it. They do a good news and a good coverage.
Ricky, you're too kind. Thank you very much. And your channel is completely awesome as well. I love what you've been doing, and long may it continue. I'm super excited to see what you've got planned, and I'm really pleased that you got a chance to experience the F-150 up close and personal.
Yeah, as we get more of these opportunities, we can share.
Awesome.
It'll be fun. Yeah.
I subscribe to all 3 of you guys, actually, and been watching Nikki's 10 every week for a long time. So if anybody here who has not subscribed, I think is making a big mistake.
We realized the other day that we have been doing Transport Evolved TEN shows since 2013.
That's crazy. That is dedication.
We're coming up on our 10-year anniversary.
Congratulations.
Well, I've been driving EVs since 2006, so thank you. It's great to see. It was crazy back then. It was all converted EVs and DIY stuff.
Absolutely. And by the way, my favorite video about the Mustang Mach-E is on Ryan's channel. If you're thinking about the Mustang Mach-E, which is a killer car, I think it's bravo Ford for doing that. Check out Ryan's channel, The Kilowatts. He has a review. It is really beautiful, and he did a really good job covering the truck. And as you mentioned, he alluded to that 80% thing. Go check it out and see what that's all about. It's a cool video. And yeah, Alex has some really awesome videos. We all kind of are in this space. We all chat together. So whenever we get heated, I think that's a sign. Take it to YouTube and share it with the internet.
YouTube. That's it. That's YouTube for you.
Yes.
Well,
so thank you guys
Alex
all. And
knows that I will tease him for years for being sponsored by the industry.
These 2 are like the long term. Like Alex and Nikki have been doing this forever. Like Ryan and I, we're much newer to this. So those 2, yeah, they deserve our respect for sure.
And I think people don't realize that actually there are quite a few videos of me on Nikki's channel and Nikki on my channel.
I've seen some,
this has been. I don't know what I would do without her. Honestly, this would never be the same without her. So absolutely.
Well, I mean, we agree to disagree on most things, so I mean that's cool.
That's why it's fun, Nikki. If we both had the same opinion, imagine how boring our channels would have been. Yeah.
Tesla's for everybody. Forget everybody else.
And thank you for all of you guys for watching. I think this was a record I've never seen. I think we were around 600, 700 people at a time, which for our channel that's really, really awesome. So if this is the kind of thing you guys would like, go subscribe to all these channels and write to them and tell them, and we will keep doing this in the future. And until next time, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Thank you for sharing a couple hours with us. It has been an absolute pleasure. And we'll catch you guys soon enough with more news.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Ricky, for doing this.
Bye. Thanks, Ricky. Yeah, thanks.